It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected. Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the Highlights Podcast, people. iOS, It's Only Sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Wall, brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected. Rugby tours are back. Truncated tours from what we used to. Us old folks, they used to be 20, 30 matches or more, 3 or 4 months. Indeed, I remember the Lions tour 77. Us in Africa playing the Springboks 3 test matches, 9 matches in total from 2026. We're all over that today. Plus a couple of very special guests on the show. Naas Botha, Springbok first 5. When they toured here in 1981, he also faced the rebel All Blacks, who were called the Cavaliers, in 1986. The significance of that is because an opponent on both those days, who would have been hounding him, scrum and ruck time, was our very own Murray Mexted. Mex was on the show today too. Both talking about Razer versus Fozzie, what went wrong, what selection changes need to be made. Both teams for this Cape Town test this weekend. Regular correspondents Miles Davis, Brendan Tell for the BTE. We played a good hearty round of what is more chance of happening. Did the tight 5, all of that, and begin the show the same way every day, which is tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Straight shootout, Razer versus Fozzie. What has changed? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Here's a take you're going to either love or hate. Is Scott Robertson Ian Foster 2.0? Because right now, results-wise, it certainly looks like it. Is the new All Black coach, in fact, any better than his predecessor? Ian Foster's first year in charge saw 2 losses to Australia and Argentina. That loss to the Argies was for the first time ever. We also drew that year with Aussie in a COVID-influenced, much-reduced rugby calendar. It was an inauspicious start for Foz following their humiliating semi-final defeat in Tokyo at the World Cup a year earlier when he was assistant to Steve Hansen. The All Blacks had lost a couple of stalwart names, Kieran Reid and Ben Smith, but essentially the side was the same as that lost at the World Cup. We were a muddled, unconvincing team, unable to assert any real forward dominance, a backline that was struggling to find a first 5 leader to control the games, and a team lacking enough world-class talent to be the best team in the world like we had in abundance and clearly were in 2015. Any of this sound familiar? Any of it at all similar? Now, take away Razer's breakdancing and promo doco about himself on Sky, the PR hype train, and carpet ride he gets from the mainstream sports media. What exactly has changed? What have you done for us lately, Mr. Robertson? 6 test matches this year, 2 losses. That's a 66% win record. 1 loss versus Argentina, an absolute shocker, terrible unco performance, an embarrassing All Black effort that, yes, was well reversed a week later. Well, that's a virtual carbon copy of what Foster's team did in 2022. And now we're lost to South Africa, where we had control of the game and then just aimlessly kicked it away. If this side was still being coached by Ian Foster, and this is my point, what do you think the reaction would be from fans, the media, social media, past players, so forth? He'd be wearing it. We all know that. He'd be wearing it. But results-wise, performance-wise, what exactly has changed under Razer? What have you seen that has changed? Has, in fact, anything at all changed except for the fact that we're constantly being told it's a new team when it's mostly the same one that we've had for the last few years? All I'm saying is that what I'm offering here is purely an alternative view. Undeniably, it's also all true.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Lachlan, sports, news, headline.
I'll kick things off with some great news that you've already talked about there, Martin, so you actually stole my first story. But South Africa and New Zealand have agreed to stage extended tours of one another's nations every 4 years beginning in 2026.
Awesome.
Sticking with rugby, here's a stat that makes victory for the All Blacks all the more important this weekend in Cape Town. New Zealand haven't lost 4 in a row against the Springboks since 1949. They lost 4 in a row to the Springboks that year. They also lost 2 to Australia.
Yeah, that's because
We lost 6
in 1 year.
in 1
worst
year.
ever year. And that was because we had 2 teams playing. So we had a team playing over there and Aussie toured here at exactly the same time.
Stats still stand, and they don't lie. A lightning strike on the water led to an early end to racing on day 5 of the America's Cup Challenger Series in Barcelona. More lightning could be on the way. Stormy weather is expected to postpone racing on day 6, which is slated to get underway from midnight tonight, if my time zoning calculations are correct. New Zealand has won 2 more medals at the Paris Paralympics with success on the track once again, courtesy of William Stedman and Anna Grimaldi. Good stuff. New Zealand have 5 medals in total now, but are yet to claim a gold. New Zealand former cricketer, Brendan McCullum's been appointed head coach of the England men's white ball teams, combining those duties with his current role as test coach. NRL news and not so good news. Cowboys assistant coach James Maloney has reportedly been sacked after being charged with drink driving. This with North Queensland's finals campaign just around the corner. And finally, US Tennis Open results today. American Taylor Fritz scoring an upset win over German Alexander Zverev in 4 sets, 7-6, 3-6, 6-4, 7-6. Grigor Dimitrov and Francis Tiafoe are underway in their quarterfinal. In the women's singles draw, straight sets wins for both Arina Sabalenka and Emma Navarro. They advanced to the semis as well. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
You've gotta love sport.
The platform.
Nas Botha. Now, for us of the older generation, call us boomers, Generation X, whatever it is you want to call us, this guy, Nasty Botha, was his nickname at the time, and he was the Springbok first 5 when the Boks toured here in 1981, that very contentious, troublesome tour. He was like the greatest version of Grant Fox you could ever imagine. He was a metronome. He was an automaton. He just never missed kicks. He kind of epitomised what we thought about the Boks, about the Afrikaners, everything to do with South Africa at that time. A nice guy, and very generously gave of his time today to discuss the All Blacks. Now, beware. He doesn't pull any punches at all. In fact, he is highly critical, especially of the last 20 minutes when we botched it. Naas Botha. Naas, your initial impressions of what you saw on the weekend.
Okay, firstly, I must say, I don't think it was the most... it was a thrilling game, put it that way. But I don't think it was the most attractive rugby that I've seen. Why I say that is that... and I'm going to go and take you to the last, about 4 minutes, when I thought New Zealand, all they need to do was to keep the ball in hand, and they actually chipped the ball twice in the last 4 minutes, and I thought, okay, that's not normal, because any ball out of hand now is actually giving possession away, and I didn't understand that. And overall, some tactical kicking from New Zealand I thought was, quite questionable. I thought, the first phases really worked nicely. Good scrums, good lineouts. Ball on the ground was quite competitive, put it that way. I thought New Zealand absolutely executed that one try when Jesse Creel went too quickly out of the defensive line. They summed it up nicely. But overall, it was a little bit more like a proper international where, pressure actually builds up and people start making a little bit of mistakes, bad decisions overall. But I must say I enjoyed it, because I thought for 80 minutes, both teams really tried hard.
So it's just the quality or lack of in those last few minutes. And what you're saying, Nas, about the kicking really confuses us as well, because the All Blacks, we've seen that 3 times out of 6 tests this year, that our strategy in the last 10 minutes is really bemusing and confusing.
Yeah, I think it's more, it's actually coming down to tactical kicking, if I can put it that way. The thing is, if you want to pin the Boks down inside their half, you can't kick the ball downfield in the middle of the field. You've got to stick it closer to the touch line. If it goes out, you say to the Boks, come, 80 minutes, come and try and score against us. But there's some kicks really that just absolutely went nowhere. And I still don't understand why the guys don't utilize the 50-22 option, because it's an absolute great option. But the thing is, you can actually put it down to, are they really used to being put under pressure on a weekly base in your Super Rugby competition? That's the difference. You see, the way I look at it, and, people have their own opinions, but that's the way I look at it. We know how New Zealand play, okay? We all love the way they play because it's skillful, they keep the ball alive. Sometimes they tend to, I want to say, over-impress, if I can put it that way, but in the nice sense, okay? Then if you take Fiji and Samoa, can't really match your tight five. So the tight five's never really under that much pressure in Super Rugby, the players. Then you take Australia. I think they would like to give better opposition, but they don't really. While we were part of your Super Rugby competition, you had 5 teams. Yes, we weren't really that successful. We won the Super Rugby 3 times, the Bulls. We did play on a number of finals. I checked on that. So we did play quite in a number of the finals. The Lions played 3 times. The Sharks in the beginning played a couple of times or whatever, okay? But the thing is, you had 5 teams playing different kinds of rugby against you guys on a weekly basis. And I don't think that's happening at the moment. Because if I look at the decision-making of your top players, it's questionable. That's definitely, and tactically, they just definitely not the Dan Carter, the Andrew Mertens, they definitely not there. And that's the thing, they need to step up. If they want to really put the Boks under pressure on the weekend, they will have to tactically play a lot smarter. I see people talk about their discipline. I didn't really, thought that was not under control, if I can put it that way. I thought first phases, yes, the Boks missed a couple of lineouts in the second half. Scrums, I thought, went very well both sides. So it's really, you need tactically to put the Boks under pressure. And is McKenzie going to do that? I don't know.
Naas Botha is with us, 1980 to 1992, 28 caps, and played for the World 15, 1986 to 1992, but 179 games for Northern Transvaal. Was here in 1981 with the Springboks. Look, it's you're raising points that are not only valid, but they're really concerning for the All Blacks, because, what we want to see is we want to see these guys who've had plenty of test match experience. We can't, we've got this smoke screen going on in this country, Nas, where we're constantly force-fed from the media and from New Zealand Rugby that this is a new team and it's got lots of new players. But when you look at the names have been there for a number of years now. So, this kind of thing of not being able to finish off a test match or getting tactics wrong or getting the kicking wrong, I mean, at this level, when you're wearing an All Black jersey, this shouldn't be happening.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And the thing is, it's a way of trying to, I want to say, explain or find an excuse. We've got new faces. Yes, of course you've got new faces. But they played to get into the side, if I can put it that way. Now, if you take a guy of 26, I gather he started age about 6, 7 in New Zealand. In South Africa, they start about 5, 6, okay? You take a guy of 26. It's 21 years he's been playing rugby. Not at that level. That I absolutely agree on. But for 21 years, he's been playing rugby. Now, how inexperienced can you be if you play 21 years of rugby? It's different because you're playing the Springboks in South Africa. Of course, it's like South Africans playing the All Blacks in New Zealand. Of course, it's a different scenario. It's difficult. It's hard to beat them at home. You love to play against the All Blacks because you know it's going to be tough. But, I mean, how inexperienced can you be if you're 25, 26? you've been at least been 20 years in rugby, okay? So, to make a poor decision or to throw a bad pass, you get taught at the age of 6 to catch and pass a ball. Now, suddenly, 20 years later, you don't do it correctly. Then, that's no excuses anymore. If you're good enough to be selected to play for the All Blacks, the Springboks, England, Wales, whatever, then we as supporters expect you to be at a different level. That's why you're in that side. And that's why I say it's the new face is the coach. Yes, it takes players sometimes a time to get used to a different voice. Absolutely agree. But a lot of those guys work with him while he was an absolute phenomenal coach for the Crusaders. So they know how he thinks, how he wants things to be done. Don't tell me he coached them to make mistakes. You make mistakes on the field because of two things. It's either pressure getting to you, or you just put yourself in a situation where there's two options and you take the wrong option. And that's coming down to the player, not to the coach or what the coach done through the week. That's down to the player. And that's why I love international rugby, because, see, in the old days it was slightly different. And let's be fair now. And that's why we don't compare. In the old days it was easy. All Blacks toured South Africa, where you had doubt about a player. So he could play during the week. Then he could show again, he show in the week he can play international test rugby. Then he gets selected for the Saturday. And that's how it works. Now, we don't have that anymore. You don't have tours anymore. Let's be fair now. So now, any coach must take us, for argument's sake, the two of us, put us in a Springbok All Black game and actually say, hey, go and prove you can play at this level. So it's slightly different. It is definitely tougher, I think. But I think somewhere along the line, the decision-making of New Zealand on the weekend and the tactical play of the weekend leave a lot of questions.
Sasha Feinberg in Ngomazulu, and his performances so far this year at first five, what are your thoughts?
I love the way, Rassie gave him an opportunity. He gave him an opportunity, and he took his opportunity. Sasha said, okay, I'll show you. And I think actually he brings a little bit of extra, if I can put it that way, to the team at the moment. His defense in that channel is very good. His tactical kicking is good. His place kicking is phenomenal, if I can put it that way. And he loves actually to keep the ball alive. So I think, where I don't want to compare him to anybody else, because, I don't like that. You get selected by somebody else. So don't compare one player to another player, okay? What he's done so far for South Africa has been brilliant. And he's keeping, you've got to be brilliant to keep actually Pollard out of the Springbok squad, if you think about it. And he's doing that. And he's doing it in such a way that, you start thinking, is Pollard going to come back? Nothing against the way Pollard, because I'm always a believer Pollard was the guy in the driving seat. He did nothing wrong not to be in the driving seat. Coach Rassie decided to give him for Sasha an opportunity, and he took the opportunity. So what should the attitude be? I gave you an opportunity, you took it, and I'm going to compliment you on the way you've been playing. And I think he's been playing very well, to be honest.
And this weekend, do you expect the Springboks to play better? What do you see from both teams?
I think both teams would like to play better because South Africa missed a number of lineouts. There's a couple of first-time tackles that both teams missed. I think South Africa realized if you don't keep your discipline on defense, you don't stay in your channel, as Jesse Creel did twice. New Zealand scored, things like that. The driving maul, I'm still anti it, okay, because I still believe it's obstruction. I think the TMO also made a couple of mistakes. Let's be fair. Come on. We can't just ignore that side of the game. But the thing is, I loved it on Monday because everybody's complaining. Oh, it wasn't a try, and yes. But, you had officials handling the game. If they make mistakes, then they should get penalized. Then they should not be on the field in the next international. That's the way it works. Same as a player. You get your opportunity. If you don't perform well, you can get dropped. Now, I believe in referees. If they don't handle the game well, TMOs, if they don't handle the game well, they should get dropped out of this out of the equation and go and work your way up again, and that's it. Because there's too many question marks, especially with all the technology we have at the moment that we can use to have bad decisions on a rugby field. And we did see quite a number on the weekend.
We need to talk.
What is more chance of happening, Lachlan?
We need to talk.
Your favourite game is called what?
Well, what is more chance of happening? You just said
Next!
What is more chance of happening? The All Blacks win the second test versus South Africa in Cape Town, or with the news that rugby tours are coming back, New Zealand Rugby in the next few weeks announce that the All Blacks are finally going to go up to Tonga to give back to the islands.
Don't finish the sentence. Don't finish the sentence. That's not happening. They'll talk a big game. They'll inflate themselves. No.
What is more chance of happening then? New Zealand Rugby agrees to an Anzac Day Bledisloe test versus Australia next year, or the All Blacks win that second test versus the Boks in Cape Town.
An Anzac test is agreed on. I think has more chance of happening. Absolutely.
I tell you, this is what's going to happen with the Anzac test.
Time frame
we just couldn't
lapsed
get
in terms
it
of being able to make that happen. We drew back to one game, and ultimately
we're going to go to Silicon Valley. We're going to go to San Diego as the best. That's the best place to play the Australia versus New Zealand test at Anzac Day. Because it evokes Anzac Day evokes San Diego to you.
No, but I honestly think the optics would actually look, because this is what NZ Rugby are driven on. They're driven on social media. They're driven on public outcry or public. They base that on social media and optics. That's what they operate on, not on what a decision is, whether it's good or bad. It's optics. And the optics of this would be really poor if Rugby Australia are keen and New Zealand Rugby go, nah. The public
backlash would be in the middle of the Super Rugby.
So what? They do that. It's like State of Origin in the NRL. They have that mid-year. They used to have the Anzac test in the NRL
hang
mid-year.
on a second, but the All Blacks players get rested from round 2 of Super Rugby, so if there's a match in the middle of that, I mean, how many weeks are they going to be?
Well, because they
won't be able to play the competition at all.
I'll tell you what, they're gonna cut off their own. What's the saying? Cut off your nose to spite your face. No, that's not it. No, there's another one. But anyway, they're going to absolutely hamstring themselves because they're going to have this All Blacks rest protocol, and then they're going to have a test halfway through the Super Rugby season.
The All Blacks are going to have to be rested from playing for the All Blacks.
Exactly. That's what's going to happen.
Yes.
What is more chance of happening? The All Blacks do beat the Boks square this series, or the mainstream sports media start questioning Razer's credentials and start treating him the same way that they treated Ian Foster. What is more chance of happening?
Well, the second one won't happen, but it's a little bit unfair to be overly critical of Razer now.
I agree. Look, and I'm not being overly critical. I'm just raising the point that at the moment we are not looking like a world-beating All Black side.
I don't think anyone's saying that we are, though.
We have had 6 tests this year, a couple of muddlers against England, an awful loss against Argentina, a brilliant first half against Argentina, and a great 62 minutes against South Africa. That's the sum total of those 6 tests.
Yeah, but no one. I don't think anyone is.
Well, how much time
getting
does Razer
ahead of themselves? I think when it gets to. So there's 14 tests this year.
Okay, and the sub part of that question is, how many test losses do we tolerate from any All Black coach in a single year? Because at this stage, we're staring down the barrel of, I reckon, at least 4. And that's not good enough. I don't care who the coach is.
I would agree with that. Look, we've got 14 tests this year. The final 4, which is this sort of late sprint, where we've got England, I don't know if it's in this order, but we've got England, France, Ireland, Italy, all in the Northern Hemisphere. So prior to that, you've got a match against Japan, if I'm not mistaken, and you would have already completed the Rugby Championship. You've got a mixture of easier and really tough tests that you've played. By then, there's no excuses. You should know what your best 15 is, and you should have been able to sprinkle your dust all over this team enough.
That's right.
To then get them performing at the best of their ability. There's no more excuses from that point. So up until then, not that I would accept losses, but the jury would still be out. Once that test to get, I don't know who the first is out of those
Ireland,
four.
I think it is.
Let's say it's Ireland. Once that test starts, no more. Not just Razer though. Assistant coaches, all of the players, experienced and inexperienced, even the administrative staff at New Zealand Rugby, everyone who's involved in some capacity with the All Blacks, no more excuses.
Last one. What is more chance of happening? The All Blacks win the second test versus South Africa in Cape Town, or Morgan Riddle continues to go out with Taylor Fritz. How do I say this? If Taylor Fritz was not a tennis player, that he would still be dating Morgan Riddle. What is more chance of happening here? Morgan Riddle is his influencer girlfriend, who's the Taylor Swift of the United States Tennis Open at the moment, who gets on screen more than her boyfriend, who was on court winning a quarterfinal.
Please don't disrespect Taylor Swift like that.
So what is more chance of happening? The All Blacks win the second test versus South Africa in Cape Town, or Taylor wasn't playing tennis and Morgan...
I know what you're getting at here. It's essentially, imagine a world where Taylor Fritz is just some dude, I don't know, he's an accountant or
he's you. He's Lachlan Moore. He's producing on the platform.
Yeah. And he goes up to Morgan Riddle, is that her name?
In a bar.
And says, Morgan, how are you? Starts to lean in, and sort of, a couple of lines, throws her way. He's got a stir-fry wok going on, throws a few veggies in there, some spices. Hey, how do you like that? She turns him away, without a doubt. She has no interest in him.
She has zero interest in him.
Zero interest.
There is no love all going on there.
So All Blacks, you're winning the second test.
Blah, 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 blah. Miles Davis joins us every single Wednesday. He's an old git like I am. When he arrived in New Zealand in 1985, he arrived here. I'm not talking out of school with a wife in full bloom. But he abandoned that and went chasing around the country following his beloved England rugby team, who were here on tour. Because that's what teams used to do back then. They came here and they toured. They stayed in the country for months at a time. Tours are back, 2026. The All Blacks go to South Africa. We talked to Miles all about that. A whole range of topics. Brendan McCullum, the new one-day coach for England, as well as the test coach. Here's Miles, as he is every Wednesday on the show. That's the only one that's been... Well, it hasn't actually been officially announced yet, because with everything to do with rugby in New Zealand, the New Zealand Rugby Union will eventually get round to officially announcing it about a month after everyone has already talked about it. So, but this is the only one that is actually on the cards. Well, it's the first one up, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to see them come back, but I'd love to see the proper tours coming back. I don't want to see, for instance, South Africa coming down here and playing all these super rugby sides.
Exactly right, yeah.
Which is what's going to bloody happen, which is what happened with the Lions. I mean, the 93 tour was magnificent in terms of playing all the provincial sides, and that's what the magic of those tours is about. It gives the provincial lads a real crack at an international side. I mean, Waikato, all those sides that have beaten I think Waikato beat the 56 box from memory.
Yeah, got the Springboks head, that's
anyway.
right, you're right, yep.
So those sort of things are magnificent. But the thing that gets me, though, is we know it's done for money, right? It's not done. It's not done for the... Yeah. I think it'd be really nice to go back to those good old days. It's done for money.
Yes.
And what about whose expense in terms of... is the rugby championship going to be fully interrupted? Does that mean like Argentina and Australia get less games, less revenue, less opportunity? Because that's the way. And so the big boys, again, South Africa and New Zealand, said, look, tell you what, we don't really need to fanny around too much with them. They're handy just to boost the numbers up and get a bit more telly. But who's going to pay the price in the end?
Okay, well, I can tell you that there will be no tour of Samoa, Fiji and Tonga. Let's get that also, because we couldn't even get a test match organised in Fiji this year, even though we play Super Rugby up there every second week. I did tell a little tale before, and I hope I wasn't speaking out of school, that when you arrived in 1985 with wife in full bloom, that you left the family home for a number of weeks and went on tour yourself with the England team.
I did, yeah.
Right, okay.
I'll tell you what, it's not something I'm proud of. And if you can imagine, we mentioned the box of 56. My father-in-law played for the All Blacks in 56 against the box. And if you can imagine going into his living room and facing up to him after those shenanigans, mate, I think I paid the price. I think my debt has been cleared. But it was fantastic. And honestly, that tour was such a laugh. Up in Poverty Bay, I remember I got on really well with Wade Dooley. We got on really well. And we were having a drinking competition, sitting on the stalls in this bar in Gisborne with Steve Brain, the England hooker. And the competition was to see who would be the first one to fall off the stall.
Brilliant competition there. Brilliant competition. Brilliant.
Steve Brain lost, and the final story when after the last test in Wellington, we went to a nightclub. I think it was Spats, actually.
Well, it'd be the only one open at that time, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, anyway, so we went in, we were up there, and the management came over to me, and they for some reason, because I'd been around the whole tour sort of thing, they thought that I was security. And they said to me, Miles, they said, there's a couple of journalists over there. I think they're trying to get a bloody dodgy story on the boys and that, and we just want to relax. I said, no problem, mate. So I went over there and I had a word with them, saying, look, the lads are at our tour. And
come on, leave it out you too, yeah.
But then Malcolm Preedy, the England prop, who'd been dropped, his wife had left him, I think, at the time, just got so paralytic, wanted to wrestle me to get him to buy him a drink, and then nicked a woman's handbag. Me and Wade Dooley had to drag him back in and get the bag off of him. But anyway, it was just one of those boring tours.
Well, I'll tell you, there was rugby that was played on the field as well, and I'll just make mention of another incident in 1993 where the Rugby Union is still trying to find a Lions flag from that tour that was attached to the top of the Eden Park stand, and apparently somebody got through the skylight and nicked that.
No. We did. We nicked both of them. We nicked the Waikato one as well. And it wasn't a skylight. It was the actual corrugated roof at the stand in Hamilton. And rusty old bolts. We'd been to the aftermatch function. We went to all of them. And we tried to pinch the flag, but they always took it down early. And this time we went out and went, look, it's still up there. So we undid the bolts, took a piece of corrugated steel out of the way, shoved Dr. Joe up there to go and get the flag, and he stood up and he got both flags. So 12 years later, I gave the mayor of Hamilton, I think it was Michael Redmond at the time, and we presented it back to him before the Māori Lions game in 2005. So I've still got the Lions flag out the back.
Baz is now your one-day coach as well as the test coach. Is this good for English cricket or not?
It's not good for my chances of getting free tickets.
No, he doesn't like you very much, does he? No.
That's for sure. But no, the guy, I mean, I didn't like the cut of his jib. He can't stand me, and that's fine, mate. That's life. But as a player, as he matured, he got on there. I thought even in his sort of dotage as a player, he gave everything. Like in the field, he'd be flinging his body all over the place, and he'd suffered so many injuries anyway. You'd have forgiven him for not doing it. And as a coach, I mean, there's been the odd little hiccup up there, but there's no denying that he's instilled a bit of confidence in that England side, and they are good to watch. Good for me if they win, and good for everyone else if they lose.
The Tide 5.
Murray Mexted minutes away. 5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. 90 seconds if we go overboard. This will remind us to shut up and get on with the next topic. Taylor Fritz's missus. We got to talk about her, only because this is becoming as much a part of sport as sport is, it seems, especially in America. And she is the Taylor Swift of the US Men's Open Tennis. Sinner versus Medvedev, quarterfinal tomorrow. Really looking forward to that, Lachlan. I wish it was a semi-final or a final. Is Razer any better than Ian Foster? And how much time do we give him as coach? You've talked about this. You reckon that it's the first test on the Northern Hemisphere tour, which is against England? Because I keep saying he's had a long time to get ready for this job. How many more losses before the tide starts to turn? 2026, a full tour of South Africa. Not. But a 9-match tour, including 3 tests. How do you want to see this, Lachlan? What teams would you like to see the All Blacks playing? And in reverse, if South Africa come here. Naas Botha, what do you know about him? And Man United fans going berserk at the moment because Lissandro took a photo with McAllister after the match at Old Trafford. These two guys are now on international duty with Argentina. And they had their arms around each other and just people, just so-called United fans going nuts about this. Let us start, though, with the 2026 tour. I'm with Miles, and I would hope, and it's not going to happen because you know that New Zealand Rugby are just desperate to try and pump up the tyres of Super Rugby. But this would be an ideal way to inject lifeblood into the competition that is not fit for purpose, the NPC, and get touring teams to go to the provinces and play our NPC sides, to play Hawke's Bay, to play Taranaki, to go down the west coast and have a game there, to play Tasman, to play Canterbury, to go up north and have a match in Northland. Well, am I talking nonsense or am I talking 100% sense here? Because these are what the tours used to be. And what would happen is there's a massive injection of cash that goes into those places, because all of the fans that are travelling end up there. They're booking hotels, they're catching Ubers and taxis, they're eating out, they're drinking. You can get 5,000 or 6,000 people just all of a sudden in the middle of a city, laughing, having a good carry on, good bit of crack.
Well, it feels like, and I'm sure this is what it was like when you were younger and there were tours going on, that, there's not that the circus is in town, not that there's circus, but there's something big in town. That's and everyone's getting amongst it and enjoying it. Yep. And rugby absolutely in this country needs that back. And the reason it does is because rugby in this country is losing its connection, and this isn't a fresh take, people have been saying this for a while, but it's important to hammer it home again, is that it's losing its connection with the rural, normal, standard, good, not modest, but down-to-earth side of New Zealand sport. It's losing that connection. Like you talk a lot, quite fondly, about going to the Kura Rugby Club last year and the people you interacted with them, the people who essentially are the foundation of rugby in this country. Mm-hmm. The elite level of it doesn't have that connection with it anymore, and it needs to be re-established. And this isn't the way to do it solely, but it's part of the way, at least from a fandom perspective. Totally, man. Like if you've got a Springboks B or C team, doesn't matter if it's a B or C team, if you've got them rolling into Whangarei to take on Northland, for example, if you've got them going to Palmerston North to take on Manawatu, down south to play Southland, then the towns that they go to are just buzzing because there's an international rugby side. It's the Springboks,
Yeah. And what the Springboks do on tour, I don't know whether you know this, but they bring a Springbok head, a mounted head, and if your team beats them, you get to keep that.
Is it taxidermy?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. So it wasn't one they just chopped off and it's still got blood coming out of it.
So for example, in 1994, Otago beat them, and so Otago, and Miles mentioned 1956, Waikato have got one from there, and it's proudly in the Rugby Union HQ.
That's great. And also, and we picked up on this a little bit when we were in France, is that South African rugby and their fans love the All Blacks and in turn love New Zealand rugby. So if they came here, they would absolutely immerse themselves in the fans, Same with the Lions, So it's a no-brainer. It comes down to how you fit it in with things like World Cups and Lions tours. Like I think us, for example, Australia have the next Lions tour next year. Have us tour South Africa tour us while that's going on.
In 500, we used to call it a lay-down misère. Find the box that says yes, ticket, because it is a good idea.
Well, because it's a good idea, it's not going to happen.
Sinner versus Medvedev. This, to me, is probably the match of the US Open, isn't it? In the quarterfinals.
Yeah. At least in terms of the calibre of the players playing each other.
These two guys played in the Australian Open final, people. Just refresh your memory here. Medvedev up 2 sets, and Sinner came back. Sinner was magnificent in that semi-final against Novak. Medvedev always looks as though he's just bait. He looks like Gary Pallister. He used to be a centre-back for Man United. He used to walk on the field and he used to go, God, he looks shattered already and he hasn't even kicked a ball. Medvedev looks as though he's wrecked after about the first serve. But he hangs in there and hangs in there. I just wonder whether it's actually something that he just does and it's just try and sort of con his opponent. But what a matchup that is tomorrow.
Well, the concerning part of it that you and Dave touched on is that why are these two playing in the... Can't they reseed the draws once you get to the quarterfinals?
And you can't do that because the whole point is that if somebody falls, well, that gives you an opportunity to get through on that side of the draw, doesn't it? That's just what they call the luck of the draw. That's why it's called the luck of the draw.
Okay, what matters more, that you have this match in a quarterfinal or a final? What matters more?
I don't think it matters.
As a fan, what would you prefer?
I'd prefer that it was in the final, clearly.
Exactly.
Clearly. But I mean, this is what's called the luck of the draw, which is why there is that saying. If that saying didn't exist, well, then it wouldn't be. And then it's
not about the logic behind what you do with the draw. Shouldn't come down to but there's a phrase or a saying that says this.
We're obsessed with Tsitsipas because he can't buy a win, and his girlfriend Paula Badoza has just crashed out of the tournament. Now, so what is the record that Tsitsipas...
Oh, this is great.
So ever since Tsitsipas started going out with Badoza, this is what I'm worried about Taylor Fritz, because he's now in the semi-final of a Grand Slam for the first time, but he's got a socialite girlfriend, an influencer girlfriend, and I just don't want her to influence him so much that his tennis falls apart like Tsitsipas has.
Well, Tsitsipas is a funny one because he came on the scene and everyone thought, oh my gosh, this guy's the next. People called him a Federer. He's got that flair and finesse about his game that Federer has. So he made a couple of Grand Slam finals. It was always sort of around the semi-finals, quarterfinals mark.
Finals of a Grand Slam. That's pretty damn close to immortality,
Well,
Lachlan.
French Open 2021 and the Australian Open in 2023. A bunch of other semi-finals as well. Tends to do better at the first 2 Grand Slams a year. Doesn't do as well at Wimbledon or US Open. Now, he and Paula Badoza, a Spanish tennis player, they got together. Now, they became official in May of 2023. Now, that's very recent. I'm pretty sure they were seeing each other earlier than that.
It's only when it's Instagram official. It's only when it's official.
Very good term for someone who's...
a boomer.
I won't bring up your age. Since that Grand Slam, Tsitsipas, quarterfinals of the French Open, but that was the same month. 4th round, 2nd round, 4th round, quarterfinal. This can't be right. Oh yeah, quarterfinals, 2nd round, 1st round. Yep. So he's gone to the quarterfinals a couple of times.
Oh, boo.
But before that, he had a bunch of finals and semi-finals appearances.
So he's never
His
got past
form has plummeted
Never
since.
got past a quarterfinal since.
No.
Taylor Fritz, beware.
Just,
Beware is all I'm
they
saying.
affect your form. Kardashian curse.
How long does Razer have? How many test defeats this year before all of a sudden people start questioning him like they did Ian Foster? Now, the way that Ian Foster was treated by the mainstream media over the last couple of years was grossly unfair, and it got really personal. And I don't want any of that thing to happen to Scott Robertson. It shouldn't happen to any All Black coach. But if this was Ian Foster coaching this team at the moment, he would be wearing it because of the results. So how much longer does Razer have, and how many more losses are tolerable?
He'd be wearing it because he coached the team for 4 previous years.
Yeah, that's fair. I understand that.
I don't think Ian Foster, I don't think the knives were quite out for him the way they were, say, in 2022 after his first 6 tests in charge. Is that how many races coached? 6, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6. So I think we all need to, and I don't think anyone's doing this, but just settle down and give Razer a good amount of time.
Well, what's a good amount of time? That's
I told you before, I think 10 tests.
10 tests.
I think because the 10th test is against Japan. After then, the All Blacks have England, Ireland, France,
Well, I
Italy.
want us to get back to a level where we don't lose any matches in a year, okay? And then maybe we lose one, maybe we lose 2.
That's all wonderful and true, okay? And for 24 years, we wanted to think that for every World Cup in that span, we were the best team in the world and we should win, but we didn't, okay? Because the reality was when it came to the tournaments, we would choke. When it comes to the All Blacks right now, when you look at the depth in the players, and we saw it on the weekend, we don't have the depth the Springboks do.
No, we don't.
And we know that, for example, Ireland...
But I was saying this about Fozzie as coach, didn't I? Last year I said the same thing.
Okay, look, what went on with Fozzie happened, okay? You've got to isolate Razer in this tenure now. The facts of the matter are, it's a new coaching group and a new head coach. Obviously, one of the coaches was there for the last couple of years. And it's a roster that has a couple of new players, so it's going to take them maybe a couple of tests to mould together, if you will. Yeah. And so the jury's out for a little while.
Finally then, Lissandro takes a photo with McAllister. They are both Argentina players. They won the World Cup. Lissandro, I think, came on in the semi-final, or he didn't play the final. He might have come on as a sub. Anyway, McAllister was an absolute huge contributor to the Argentinians winning that. A photo that is infuriating United fans online. This is what I just hate about the online side of life at the moment. Who cares what people think about this, really? These are 2 guys who are great mates, are teammates, are Argentinian teammates, and met after the match, put their arms around each other and had a selfie. Liverpool dicked us 3-0 at Old Trafford. I'm not offended by that at all. What I'm offended by is I'm offended by the defending and the coach's inability to get the best out of the players. This doesn't offend me in the slightest, Lachlan. Is there something wrong with me?
No, they're the same nationality. Get over it. The fans who are saying it's an issue are stupid. Come on, they're from the same country.
We miss him. I miss him. You miss him. On Sky Sport, he was brilliant, Murray Mexted. He was a superb All Black number 8 from the time he played in 1979 till his last Test match in 1986. Never missed a single match for our country during that time. Played over 70 matches. So that was Tests and touring matches. Significant because the news today that, tours are back on from 2026. The All Blacks will be in South Africa. 3 tests and 9 matches. Yahoo. It has been a long time. And, well, can you remember the last time we had one of these? 1994. That was when the Box came here. Of course, the Lions do tour here, but it's not quite the same as it was when it was just the single country coming. Anyway, Murray Mexted with his thoughts on what he saw on the weekend, what needs to change for this weekend. Mex, as far as the loose forward trio goes, are you keen on giving Satiti, Hawkeye, Finau, these guys game time, get them into that, or do you just think that we've just got to settle on this combination at the moment that we've got? And I'm asking that question with Papali'i rumoured to be fit again. Does he come back in?
Yeah, I mean, you don't give guys game time against the Springboks at Cape Town. You've got to play your very best players you can play, the guys that are on form, because it's going to be another torrent affair. And, our last conversation, I hope that we were good enough to win the Cape Town test, and I think we are. But we need to have every gun we've got in our holster, I tell you, to win that one. I'm not sure of what the weather's going to be like and whether what the referee's going to be like. It all influences the game. But I think we probably were found wanting on our strategic response in the last 20 with the new players on the field. So I think it's going to be another hell of a game. But you don't give guys a run just to grow them. They've got to earn their place in that team. In fact, I'm a critic of the substitution with 20 minutes to go at sea level. Unless a player is exhausted. And, when you've got your heart in it and you're dying for the cause, exhaustion's out the window. There's a certain amount of fatigue, but there's no exhaustion. And they're different. And so, and mental strength, that's how you grow your mental strength, actually. It's one of the ways you grow it till you become, awesome in that area. So, the answer is no. I wouldn't bloody play too many players at all. I'd leave the team as they are and say, you guys did the business for 60 minutes. We're at sea level now. Do the bloody business for 80.
Murray Mexted, one of our greatest number 8s for the All Blacks, is with us. How do we tactically contain that bomb squad? Because you could almost feel a collective sigh of, oh, God, here they come, when 5 of them came on in the 48th minute. But for the first 15 minutes they were on, we did contain them. Then we got overrun in the last about 18 minutes or so. So looking at that, what do you think? Is there an obvious answer to how we combat that?
No, there's no real answer, but I don't think it makes any difference, to be frank, to their strength. And, in our strength, I mean, these guys the starting lineup can play 80 minutes. And you probably shouldn't substitute any of them. No one deserves to be substituted, in my view. You name one person, one of those replacements that came on at Ellis Park, that should be playing, that should be starting. Leonard Brown would be the only one you could ever say there's a possibility. You can't start anyone else.
Well, Mix, I'm not so sure that the guys on the bench are better than those on the field, and I think that that's what they have as an advantage over us, that they're bringing guys on that at least comparable, but I'm not sure that our guys are as good as those that were first selected in the 15.
Well, you said two things there, Marty, and I think they're both right, but they were contradictory. You said two things. You said bring on better players, and then you said later in your comment, players that were equal with the guys that went off. They can substitute, and they don't lose any strength from that. And depending on the tactics that they're trying to play, those substitutes can assist, in dominating for a certain period of time. That's a different scenario. I don't think that's a major. Honestly, I don't think it's a major. It's great that they've got the bomb squad. Some of those guys, it's the best. It's exceptional, and he shouldn't have been there because he should have been on the field. But some of those guys aren't any better. I think the hooker probably is better. Malcolm Marks, he's a hell of a rugby player, and he probably should be playing, starting the game, in my view. It's really interesting looking at this Tamaiti Williams selection. He's gone from being an inexperienced kid with a baby face 12 months ago to an enormous physical presence who's probably proven on Saturday that he's got what it takes. In the old language, and a lot of us still talk about the old language, he's 6'5" and 22 stone.
Yeah, it's huge, mate. That's a lock back in the time when you were playing, a South African lock.
Yeah, and we had some big Kiwi locks at the same size, Paul Tura and these sorts of guys back in the day. But for the younger listeners, that's 144 kgs and 1.96 metres. So that's a big man. Now, hell of a lot bigger than the bloody opposite prop. I can't even pronounce his name, Noche or something. And, I wouldn't be surprised that the Springboks changed their front row because of Tamati Williams. So I think we've got an opportunity there. Their scrum never dominated at all. In fact, if anyone dominated, it was us. When the subs came on, not sure what happened there. It was it's irrelevant actually in many respects if we don't change our players. So I'm saying that there are coaches out there and selectors out there that are succumbing to their assistant coaches wanting to get one of their players on the field, or the strength and conditioning guy saying, oh, that guy's exhausted because he doesn't understand the power of mental strength. You don't need to change players if they're playing well. Leave the players on the field. You only change the players if you can see they're genuinely fading, or you want to change the strategy of the game and bring on some new players to do that. I get infuriated. Fancy taking off a guy like Will Jordan. Why would you take off Will Jordan? Well, I can understand taking off Tamati Williams, at 144 kgs and playing at 6,200 feet above sea level. You'd have to say he probably was pretty tired. But hell, he didn't look like it when he was scrummaging. So there's sense and nonsensical stuff happening. So I'm being a bit critical, aren't I, of my favourite rugby team in the world. Not the team, but the selectors actually changing players unnecessarily. In fact, I see that almost every game. I know it's good for people to get, as you called it, what did you say, build your players with time. Well, I don't think you build your players at Cape Town this weekend.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do though is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable! Incredible!
The Platform. It's only sport with Martin Devlin on The Platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.